Thanks for chatting with me today, Carissa, about your role with Support Act and your involvement with the upcoming Gold Sounds conference.
Yes, thanks for having me.
So, I want to start with Support Act, where you work as the First Nations community engagement and social worker. I understand that Support Act is not a new charity, it's been running for over 25 years. Tell me a bit about the organisation and the programs and initiatives.
Yeah, like you said, Support Act has been running for 25 years, and they only recently brought on a First Nations community engagement and social worker because the organization has expanded over the years of COVID and having such a huge industry rely on all of the services during that time. So I guess one of the main services, and this is prior to COVID, that Support Act had was, or still has, was our crisis relief service. And that's for people who have lost their work due to injury, illness, or a mental health issue. Because there was a recognition for the need of supporting musicians or music workers in the industry because they live off paycheck to paycheck. So there's no annual leave, there's no sick leave, there's nothing that they can kind of fall back on. It's constant work, and they're constantly having to make ends meet with what gigs that they can get, or what work that they can get within the industry. And there was a need there for some crisis relief or crisis support, and to support them from not burning out within the industry. So that was the main reason why Support Act came about. And it was firstly crisis relief supports, and then we evolved into mental health supports. Now we provide programs such as mental health first aid, On My Mind, Yarning Strong, all those good programs that support mental health within the industry.
Yeah. I noticed there's also funeral support.
Yeah, so definitely something that's always kind of been there, but no one's really known what services we provide until very recently. But yeah, we definitely provide funeral supports. So that's for musicians itself. So say if you were a person that worked in the music industry and you passed away, then your family could access support to give you a good send off.
I love it. Tell me more about your specific role with Support Act.
Yeah, so my specific role is First Nations support. So I'm a social worker and a community engagement. So I hold two roles. Um, and the social worker role is me supporting our First Nations music workers, or musicians and music workers, and supporting them in crisis relief. But I provide a more culturally safe support, so they feel more comfortable coming to me. And statistics do show that if you have a First Nations person employed, you're more likely to have a better engagement with First Nations people who access your service. So that was part of the reason why Support Act brought me along, was to increase that engagement and to make the space more culturally safe for people to be able to access the service. I help link them in with crisis relief. I help link them in with services outside of our services. So it'll be like kind of casework, social work. And then with the community engagement work, I provide culturally sound information, like making sure that the industry is aware of what First Nations people go through and the issues that are involved with that, and how to work with First Nations people. And like one thing that we provide is the First Nations mental health first aid, and that's making the industry aware of First Nations issues and their mental health and how you can support them with the industry. So that's kind of another part of my role that I'm really passionate about and I absolutely love doing. And yeah.
Yeah. I've completed the mental health first aid training myself, and it's quite a rigorous load of information and resources to learn. But by knowing that, it really empowers you to know what to do when someone is in crisis and what to ask and what to, yeah. So, and I want to reference the stigma around mental health as well, by having good access to services, but also for people to feel okay to access the services without feeling shamed. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, and that's a huge thing within, not only within the non-Indigenous community, but in the Indigenous community as well. So that's one thing that Support Act is trying to tackle, is getting people to reach out to those services and not feeling embarrassed to be able to ask for help, because so many of us go through mental health struggles. And when I talk about First Nations people, the reason I'm so passionate about that is because of, if you look at the statistics in First Nations suicide, it's 149 per year, and that's 6 times more than our veteran defense force, who they actually go through war. And so you look at that, and where we make, even though we're 3% of the population, we almost double the suicide rates in Australia. So you look at that kind of statistic and you see that they're not accessing mental health supports. And one of the main reasons is because there's not someone culturally appropriate within that service. And I was talking about this with my social worker before I kind of jumped on here, that it's really hard when you're looking for supports to find the right supports for you that are going to help you in that particular moment. So sometimes it can deter people when they're reaching out for supports and they're wanting a specific support, but they're really struggling with finding that support. And, that can really put a stigma behind that mental health. So we're just an organization that really tries to break down those barriers and tries to get people to access those supports, but also tries to get people to talk about it a lot more, because that way we're going to be creating a more safe space for music and industry workers as a whole.
Yeah. Yes. And that phrase, safe space, that's what it's about. People feeling safe to pick up the phone and make that phone call. And then I want to touch on the word awareness and conversations. And it might be, this discussion today might resonate with one person or two people, and they might share that with a couple of people. So it's keeping those conversations open, those channels open, and knowing that, feeling safe and secure that when someone makes a phone call, that someone on the other end of the line, they're professional, but they are also relatable. Yeah.
And I mean, you were talking about before, understanding kind of the awareness around mental health and what we're dealing with as a whole. And some people, when you're talking about it in the industry, some people are like, oh, I'm going through the same thing, and you're like, oh wow, I didn't know you were going through that. It's like really hard for me to know. And the fact that we're having these conversations is then creating that space for everyone to be open and honest and talk about it, because everyone is going through some sort of thing in their life. And it's good to have that open discussion, because then each other can support each person within that space.
Yeah. Now, I want to talk about Yarning Strong, Breaking Down the Barriers, which is a panel discussion that you'll be part of in October for the Gold Sounds Conference, music conference in Castlemaine. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is a topic that I've been meaning to address for quite a while now, and it's something that we were discussing before about the stigma around mental health, and the stigma about not only talking about it, but accessing those services. So this will be a discussion about breaking down those barriers of mental health, and particularly with First Nations people, and getting them to actually be active in accessing those services, to see how important it is to be able to say, hey, I need help, and not bear the weight of the world on their shoulders. And one thing that I want to touch within that is to make the non-Indigenous community aware of kind of what First Nations people go through and why it's hard for them to access services, and break down those barriers of destigmatizing mental health within the First Nations space, and why it's so hard in particular for First Nations people because of what's happened, not only previously but in current present times. So,
yeah. And you'll be joined by panelists, Dallas Woods, who's a musician, Larissa Ryan.
Yeah, so she's a A&R. So an A&R is artist recruitment, I believe, at Warner Studios. So and she also manages artists.
Yeah.
herself.
Great. And the panel will be hosted by Mitch Tambo, who is also an artist I've got here, musician.
Yeah, Mitch is absolutely amazing. He actually got the Golden Buzzer in Australia's Got Talent. I can't remember when that was, but it was a while ago. But he's released amazing work, and he's also has a degree in social work. So he's perfect for the panel.
Perfect for the panel, indeed. So I'll just let our listeners know that the Yarning Strong Breaking Down the Barriers discussion will be at the Fee Broadway Theatre on Saturday, 15th of October, 10 a.m. till 11 a.m., part of the Gold Sounds Music Conference. I want to talk about Oz Music T-shirt Day.
Yes.
Yeah, because this is also something that Support Act supports or runs.
Yeah, Oz Music T-shirt Day is so exciting because it brings the music industry together as a whole. And I think this year is going to be a lot bigger because of the year that the industry has gone through. But Oz Music T-shirt Day gets everyone together to wear an Oz Music T-shirt, hence the title. And you wear those T-shirts and raise funds for Support Act so we can continue the work that we're currently doing. So if you buy an Oz Music T-shirt online, that goes towards our organization, which helps us support the music industry. And then you can also do teams. So there was an organization that did kind of a Kris Kringle Oz Music T-shirt Day where they put names in a hat and they kind of juggled it all together, and each person picked out a name and brought an Oz Music T-shirt for their Kris Kringle, I guess. And that's pretty cool. So you can do fun things and make fun teams and like set your own, I guess, goals into raising funds. And it's a really cool kind of platform to get involved in, and kind of a good support to get involved in as well, given the work that we do is super important for the music space.
Yeah, I love it. Is there anything else you'd like to add that I haven't asked about?
If anyone is seeking supports or wanting to know what other supports we have, you can go to our website, which is www.supportact.org.au. We also have tax help there if people are struggling to put their tax returns in. That's definitely something that we can support. And we have other resources online for people in music to access. So definitely check out the website.
Yes. And there is a Support Act Wellbeing Helpline, which is free and it's confidential and 24/7. So this is a phone counselling service for anyone working in Australian music or the arts. Would you like me to read out the number?
Yes.
1-800-959-500. Thank you, Cerisa, for speaking with me today. Hopefully I can get along to the Gold Sounds conference and meet you in person in a couple of weeks on the 15th of October.
Yeah. Oh, cool. And I would definitely love to see you there. And yeah, it's going to be a good conversation.
Definitely. We're going to go to a song. So the song that you've chosen is a Dallas Woods song, being one of the presenters on the Yarning Strong panel. And this is Heaven of My Own.